Yes, people, we are here at the very end of Drive to Survive Season 6, Episode 10. Red or black? Guys, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. 10 episodes deep, and we've reviewed every single one of them. Make sure you go check out the first 9 episodes of this series, okay? Drive to Survive Season 6. Let's get into it. It's the final episode, right? And it's all about Ferrari versus Mercedes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is what is going on. We kick things off, well, in the Italian Alps for a brief hot second. You know, there's training going on. Like the training they were going through in the Italian Alps. I want to be a Formula One driver, people. I do, but not through that avenue. Like the work that they have to put in, the exercise, the brutal exercise that they have to go through, it's just too much for me. It's too much for me. But yes, the main thing really to start this off is Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Grand Prix, you guys remember, it was a lot, okay? It was quite a lot of things. To think it was actually only done like, what, 2 months ago or 3 months ago? You know, Las Vegas is still kind of still in the brain, still firm in the brain there. But yeah, the concept of Las Vegas, crazy street circuit. So the Las Vegas Strip, it shuts off, it closes. They close the city just for that Formula One race from like, I don't know, what is it, midnight over their local time? I'm not entirely sure. But, it's crazy to think that, Danica Patrick puts it as, there was cars, there was buses, there was all sorts going on this road. And then we close it and we go and do practice and qualifying and a race. And it's just mad. The concept of it is crazy. But of course, it sold itself there. The glitz and glamour of Las Vegas on the Las Vegas Strip, one of the most famous roads in the world. And yeah, it was literally like crazy concept to me that we actually had a race there. And the drivers complained about there being no grip, literally no grip whatsoever. And it made total sense. I love the way that they make Toto versus Fred be a thing, fighting for second place. Like, let's have it right. We should not be here talking about second place, but Netflix give you a reason. They give you a reason as to why you should care about second place. And fair play, they really did sell it well. It was really, really good to see. In fact, I was really quite happy to go through this and go through the motions of all of this, because P2 really became a thing. Like when you're watching the season live, you don't really think about it. You might think about it here and there, but it's like, really, for what is it worth? But it's worth a hell of a lot of money. And these teams were trying to fight for second place. They were doing what they can to be in second place. I like the way they kind of made practice session an actual thing. Now, we know why they make it a thing, because we're going to get to it in a second. But the way Danica Patrick kind of sort of talks about it, she's like, she kind of just, the purpose of practice is really good. You get to feel the track, you get to know the track, you get to feel the little nuances of the track. If you do not have practice and you just go into like a qualifying cold or a race cold, it's going to be a disaster for you. So whenever we have sprint weekends and it's only one practice session and then we go straight into like a sprint shootout, it's like it creates more excitement for the fan to watch, but you don't really see the drivers at their best. So it's kind of that two-edged sword. Do you want the drivers at their best, or do you want to see a bit of chaos and a bit of mayhem, which may not be a true reflection of their actual drive? But we get to the scenario where Carlos Sainz is going through his practice runs, and I didn't even realize this at the time, but he goes over this drain cover that sounds almost like a bomb. It sounds like an explosion's taking place. You can hear him wincing as soon as he hits the drain cover. You can hear him like in pain, in agony, because his back has absolutely been fried by that force and pressure of what took place. And it's a street circuit, okay? It's a track that is literally on the roads of Las Vegas, so they can be. Do I forgive them? I forgive them because it's not their fault they're even hosting the race, if that makes sense. I mean, they should have it planned and prepared, but really and truly, you almost think Formula One, come on, like you should have really thought about this. Like you should not allow a race to be done like minutes and seconds and hours after it's been used for public use, just casually. The Vegas Strip, it can't shut down for nobody. That's for damn sure. But at the same time, you think, come on, the driving is not safe here. It's not safe whatsoever. And on top of that, guess what? It sort of ruins the car. The monocoque, as Fred Vasseur called it, the battery, the whole car is ruined. Okay, they have to build a new car, is what he basically said. And Sainz gets a 10-place grid penalty for it. And you just think, Really? You know, I guess because, you know, the car that he's kind of turned up to practice with is not going to be the car that he has for the quali or for the race itself. And it was just incredible. We get to the driver's press conference. No, sorry, the team principal press conference, which is always an entertaining watch. We get to that press conference, and you just see Fred Vasseur is not impressed. He doesn't want to know. He wants no part of this conversation because they keep asking him about the event. What about the event? And he's just like, no, you ask somebody else this question. He was hacked off. He didn't want any part of this. I just love the way they caught that and how they've chopped that pieces up together. It was really, really good. But Ferrari, I tell you what, happy days for them in qualifying. Guess what they do? They get a 1-2 in qualifying. So the car is there. Remember from the episode prior when I said Fred Vasseur is doing his thing to try and make this team better? Well, guess what? They're getting 1-2s as well now in qualifying. But because of the penalty, Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, who had qualified P2, has to start the race in P12. And then at the start of the race, he spins off early in the race, and he ends up at the back of the grid. So you can just imagine it's just a bad weekend for Carlos Sainz. Like, who would want to be him this weekend? Nobody would want to be. But you know what's really good as well? So obviously there's a bit of jeopardy there. They suck you in to sort of thinking, okay, you know, I'm hooked now. How does Carlos recover this? What happens to Carlos in this race? But also just like the racing, as they were showing the racing going on, my heart rate was really getting higher and higher and higher. I don't know what it was about this episode in particular, but I was really in it. I was really feeling the race, and it seemed like it was a lot at stake here. There was a lot of pressure to be had, and it was just like, you know, I just found my heart rate going up. The music was spot on from Netflix as well, as it was all happening, as the race action was taking place. And then Mercedes get their bad luck. So after Carlos Sainz has had his, Mercedes are having theirs. I think Hamilton gets a puncher as well, and then Russell gets damaged with one of the Red Bulls as well. So like they're having bad luck now, Mercedes. And remember, this is Mercedes versus Ferrari. It's all about fighting for P2. After a great battle with Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc ends up in P2. Now, in the race, he was P1. He started on pole, but he was getting passed by both Red Bull drivers. And yet he still managed to recover and beat Sergio Perez. Great racing, honestly, between the two. The pace was there. After being passed by both Red Bulls, you would be deflated. But Charles Leclerc continued. And, you know, Carlos Sainz having a bad day. Charles Leclerc really waved the flag with a P2 finish there for the Ferraris. Then we get to Abu Dhabi, and everybody is exhausted. Everybody's just like, it's the final race. Because I remember in the season, I think it was like maybe from like Qatar, or like even from Singapore to the end, people were just absolutely finished. They were done. They were finished with the race. They were like, we don't want to do any more. You know, you go Qatar, there was Abu Dhabi, there's America. The traveling was unreal. I think, you know, Japan was also, I think, in that mix. It was unreal, the traveling. And so, you know, they were all exhausted. And even I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm feeling it as well. Okay. And you're about to enter into a brand new season. So it's going to be interesting here. And then, you know, they not just about Ferrari and Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes here, but they also brought in a little sneaky bit of between Aston Martin and McLaren, who were fighting for the fourth in the championship. And you remember McLaren had an awful start, finished on a high. Aston Martin started off so high and were finishing on a low, right? And there seems to be a bit of beef between Lawrence Stroll and Zach Brown, which they didn't get into, which I found very strange. Why Netflix didn't dive in? Why didn't we get more information about that situation? Because it kind of seemed to come out of left field. You know, there was a bit of beef there. So I don't know what exactly happened in there. But, you know, the suspense during the race, the final race was good. Because, again, you still felt like there's something to talk about here. There's something to fight for. Even though, you know, by the way, Max Verstappen is champion. And it's not mentioned once in this episode or in this series. You don't know Max Verstappen won the championship. Like, do you know how mad that is? Like, there's not really a Red Bull episode. We get a bit of Christian Horner, who we love to see, but then we don't really get anything about the, you know, Sergio Perez, his trials and tribulation, Max Verstappen winning, you know, being dominant and winning the season. Like, you wouldn't know if you just watched the series alone and didn't watch Formula One. You don't know that Max Verstappen. All you know is that he won like 19 races out of 20, whatever it was. So obviously your brain might think, well, yeah, he is the world champion. But my God, can we talk about it, please? Like, anyway, so, but we, you know, we focused on P2, we focused on a bit of P4 there. And, you know, it was really good. It keeps you engaged. I like the way that they kind of build a suspense on the race. I do love the way that in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the sky, that kind of goes from like a light sky to fading into dark. It's really nice. It's actually a really good time. The way they timed the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, I never really appreciated it until like recently. So yeah, I really did love that. But in the end, triumph for Merck, because at the end of the day, Merck got George Russell got on the podium. I think he finished P2 in the race. Hamilton, I think, was P7 or P9 or something like that. It was not a great day for Hamilton, but it was a good day for George Russell, who secured the points right at the end. And I think they won by about 4 points in the end. It was about 2 or 4 points was the gap between Ferrari and Mercedes. It was a very close, hard-fought battle. Mercedes ended on top, the same way McLaren ended on top of the Aston Martin, finishing in P4 as well. And so they kind of do like a whole good wrap-up of every team principal of the season. Thank you so much, guys, like on the team radio. Thank you so much, guys, for what's going on. For what's happened this season. Thank you for your hard work. You get to the Gunther Steiner part of it, and it's like, it's just doom and gloom. It's like that's the only bad story left in the series, right? Is the Haas team, because they finished last, and it's almost like, thank God this season is done. This season is over. And but you still feel emotional. You're doing the rounds of every team. Well done, team. Thanks for everything. And you start to feel like emotion of like, wow, well done to everybody. It's hard work to be in Formula One, to be a driver, to be a team principal, an engineer, or anything, a mechanic, whatever the case may be. It's a very difficult job to do. So to all those that deal with the logistics as well, the traveling, it's just madness. In the end, though, it kind of closes with Max Verstappen. He's 119, he's broken records, but can you just say he's the world champion, for goodness sake? And Red Bull the constructors champions. But anyway, you don't really get into that. And the very, very end is just text that says that Gunther Steiner's contract was not extended and had left Haas at the end. You think Gunther Steiner, of all people, this is how you're going to treat this man who was the star of Drive to Survive? I felt like, no, you just need to give him his props. But I think at the same time, I think next season's episodes, I think, there's quite heavy stuff. They didn't really mention the Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari talk. They didn't actually mention that at all. I thought they might put like a graphic same way. But maybe that's all saved up and bulked and ready for next season. I think we still get Gunther Steiner next season in Drive to Survive. I still do. Because even at the end, like just before they announced that, do that announcement bit, Gunther Steiner and the Netflix like producers and so on and camera people were sort of saying to Gunther, thank you so much. You've been brilliant this year. Like, we love you as always. And, but it wasn't him knowing then at that time that he was not going to be there anymore. He was just like, it was just like a wrap up. Let's wrap up the show. But that which is kind of a nice touch now that I think about it. But after that, they give us the graphic and it kind of ends there. And it's like, well, what a season that was. If it was quite exhausting at the end of the day. I don't know what you think, guys. I think that the Netflix episodes are too many. I feel like 10 episodes is not necessary. Now, was every story worthy on the thing? I think you could have made the Ferrari stories, and you could have probably made one of the Alpine story. You could have made it one, just like you made McLaren's one, and yet you missed some vital stuff in that one. They could, and I don't mind it being a longer episode for that, for specific reason, because there was quite a bit to put together. But I did think I just feel like over the years, I've just felt like, 10 episodes is not necessary. There really is not. It's not necessary to do it at all. And episode 10 is usually not rushed, but you jump from place to place quite often. Now, I know they said, look, this is the red or black kind of thing, but then there was also a McLaren story in there. There's also James Vowles was talking to Alex Albon, like, you got a P7 in the constructors that came up in the end. Gunther comes up in the end. The Lawrence Stroll, Zach Brown beef, it's all in there as well. So you sort of like, okay, but and the funny bit there when Lewis Hamilton says, look, I don't want to see this car again. I don't want to see it ever again. That's how he felt. And yet they finished P2 in the end. So for what was quite a bad season for them, finishing P2 is no mean feat. Ferrari took it harder, especially Charles Leclerc. He was really upset that the team didn't get P2 in the end in the constructors. He didn't even get to do his donuts. He was not happy at all. So, that was the scenario there. That was the situation there with Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. But yeah, I think, there's a lot to look forward to in the next season, I believe. And I'm looking forward to another series, another season of Drive to Survive. I've loved Netflix Drive to Survive, and you can tell because I've done an episode for every single one. So if they've done 6 series, 10 episodes each, that's 60 episodes. I've done 60 Drive to Survive Netflix episodes, reviewing every single one from start to finish. And we're here right at the end. Make sure you check out the playlist. Make sure you watch every single episode of this season. It was a thrilling season. Make sure you watch the Netflix documentary as well. It's fantastic. It brings people to Formula One. And I understand why, because it's filled with drama, filled with impact, gets your heart going, but it gets you excited for the new season ahead. And the new season is this weekend. Ferrari qualifying on Friday night, race on Saturday night at the Bahrain Grand Prix 2024. Until next time, people, you've been great. I've been Peter on pole. I'll see you in Bahrain. Peace.